Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Moyer, author of Win Again, speaker, career coach, and business advisor. And I help athletes, executives, and entrepreneurs reach their fullest potential. What you're going to be hearing in every single episode are conversations with athletes and other sports-related influencers. And we'll be offering you the insight that you need to succeed in life, including advice that will let you jump past your competition, whether it be for a great new job or taking your business to a much, much higher level. Make sure to connect with me on social media at Mark Moyer Coach and go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to the tips and strategies that my coaching clients get directly. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email to mark@markmoyer.com and I'll get you going right away. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be an awesome episode. Now, are you ready to make your mark? Let's do this. Hey everyone, welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. I'm thrilled you're here because you're clearly listening to me and my guest from somewhere on the planet, or maybe somewhere off the planet. But either way, I'm thrilled you're here because I've got an incredible guest today. Marques Ogden, great speaker, former NFL player, who's got an incredible story to tell. I mean, here's a guy who was a successful player, but then suffered some adversity, and he's come out of it even better. And this is a guy who's got lessons for us. He's got a great message. He's got tips for us. Just a great guy to speak to and be a part of this podcast. But before we get started, if you haven't done so already, check this out on iTunes. Leave me a review, subscribe, get involved. I'd love hearing your thoughts. Send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com. You're my audience and you're super important to me. Would love to hear from you. Without further ado, let's get this cranking. Here's Marques, myself, and Dawn, and just a rollicking, great conversation. Let's do this. Marques Ogden, thank you so much for being with me today on the Make Your Mark podcast. And we also have Dawn tagging along as well. And I'm thrilled to have you on, Marques, because I had the opportunity of meeting you a few months ago via, actually, of all things, LinkedIn, which is an amazing networking tool. But on top of that, I became involved more directly in your Leadership Academy, and I attended the Academy in Las Vegas a few months back, and it was an absolutely amazing experience. I mean, I met so many great people. Everybody there was somebody that I was impressed with, but I also liked. I mean, just nice people. So Marques, I really appreciate all that. Thanks for being on, and say hello from Colombia. No, where are you?
What's up, everybody? Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mark. I'm sitting here in my house right now. I'm in Cary, North Carolina, which is probably about 20 minutes outside of Raleigh.
Excellent. And what, we've had a pretty crazy bunch of weather going on recently. How's it? I mean, are you a big time, like, do you do a lot of surfing? What do you do in the summertime?
No, we don't have any beaches that are relatively close to where I live. The closest one's probably going to be about 2.5 hours away, going out towards Wilmington. Or then after that, probably like another maybe 4 hours heading down to like Charleston. So not really a lot of beaches around this area. So really in the summer, I'm an active guy. I like going to the gym. I like playing basketball. My gym has indoor courts. I play maybe 5-6 times a week. In the summer, just kind of really hanging out the house. I like to play poker. But really, I'm a movie guy. I just went and saw Equalizer 2 this past weekend with my wife. Great movie. Huge Denzel fan. So in the summer, for me, it's not really anything different because we don't really have any type of beach. That's really what we call within a close, I can get there in half an hour, 45 minutes. It's nothing close to where we live in Carolina.
I have no idea why I said surfing because, first of all, I've only tried it once. And that was when I was living out in California for a little while. And I went to Huntington Beach and my friend's like, dude, man, you got to try surfing, dude. And so I was like, well, okay, I'll try it. And there'd just been like this storm there. So the surf was really high. And all I remember is trying to paddle out and basically swallowing the equivalent of like the entire Pacific Ocean. I was like, this sucks. And I was trying to paddle out, and I'm just getting gassed. And I'm like, how do people like this thing? And then I finally like turn around and I'm starting to get going. And then there's like the piers right there. And all I'm thinking about is that they'll say like, idiot New Yorker gets head smashed in by pier trying to surf. What a stupid dude. So I decided like I was better suited for land sports. So I said, so I don't know why I brought up surf. Beats me. Anyway, well, look, what I want to talk about today and really talk more about making your mark. I mean, that's what the whole point of this podcast is. And what we're going to talk about is not necessarily a focus on your playing career. I mean, this is not, I'm not a fanboy guy. I'm not really too fired up about all that stuff. I mean, it was great and you were an amazing player and all that kind of stuff, but it's all about, well, what have you done since that time to really make an impact? How you've leveraged your athleticism and your tenacity and your just being competitive and all the stuff that being an athlete brings, and how you've transformed that into what you're doing now. And so we're going to jump into that. We're also going to I'm going to ask you to give us all some advice and we'll talk about a couple of things that you may have done in your past that you'd recommend against and maybe change. And here we go. We're off and running. So Marques, what we'll start off with is, I was impressed with the fact that you not only did you get your degree, Howard University back in 2002, but I saw that you also did additional education a few years later through the NFL. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so when I was playing, I went out to USC through they have a construction development program where you could go out and learn about different businesses in construction, like real estate or mergers and acquisitions. So this is when the NFL was really starting to dabble into some post-career training for guys that had a love for certain aspects. Real estate was one. They had a business side. They had a side for coaching back in 2003 and 4 and all that before we got into the Bill Walsh minority program or going to get your degree at Wharton, things like that. So I sampled in that and I went out and did that, which was very exciting. Learned a lot about just education of real estate against mergers, acquisitions. I learned a little bit about land development, and it helped me to kind of figure out that was a possibility of what I wanted to do after the NFL. But in real terms, what I ended up doing, I probably shouldn't have done, which was become a contractor. But that ended up kind of saying, hey, you know what? It was close enough to what I thought I could do in real estate. But it turned out to be such a totally different animal by the time I was, already into my business, head first.
Well, it's interesting. It's hard to. I mean, look. Obviously, don't blame yourself for that. I mean, it's almost impossible to figure that out. Back in 2005, when you're going through this program, you don't necessarily know how it's going to lead down the road. But I think you should give yourself a lot of credit for just pursuing that, because honestly, most people don't. Most of the players they wait till it's almost too late to start looking into that stuff.
Oh, I agree. And it's unfortunate because, I tell guys all the time, because I now keynote speak for the NFLPA, retired players, for some current NFL teams, to their current players, like the Buffalo Bills are one of my biggest clients. I go talk to their rookies, every single year. I did it 2017. I did it this past year. I remember talking to Josh Allen, who actually just signed his contract today, and a couple of the big name guys from Buffalo and all their rookies. And I said, hey, look, guys, right now you have all the help you can get from the team, because the player engagement director and the assistant player engagement director and the Legends community director for every team has one. They are dedicated to you getting all the information you can right now because you're on the 90-man roster. Now, if you end up making the 53-man roster or the 8-man practice squad, as long as you're on the roster, on the practice squad, the whole year and into the off season, you're going to have them at your disposal to help you with your next, with your career after the gridiron. What that might be tomorrow, might be in 10 years, but at least you can start having that conversation. If you get cut by the team because now the NFL has where they only make one cut. They go from 90 down to 53, and then they add 8 men all within 24 hours, which is, I think, is interesting. But that's how they're doing it now. But once you're cut from the team, the player engagement director and the assistant player engagement director, they are not going to have time. They can't work with you because they have 61 guys that they are dedicated to doing a job for an entire 12 months until the next cuts are made, in the next following year after a new draft class comes in, things like that. And you are unfortunately going to be on the outside looking in. So while you're here right now, take advantage of what's here. Take advantage of someone helping you figure out what your passion could be. I tell the guys all the time when I go speak, go out and meet people. Go out and figure out, what do you like to do besides the NFL? What do you like to do besides football? What are you good at? What are your strengths? So that when you leave the game, whenever that might be, you're not just sitting there saying, oh, what am I going to do next? That's what happened to me. Even though I was getting that post-career education, I didn't have a plan of action because when I got released after I had my back injury, I wasn't expecting it. And it was very hard for me to deal with that. So I try to tell the guys, get as much education, as much knowledge, as much help, as many connections as you can right now, because tomorrow is not promised. And they all think, oh, I'm here, I'm not going to get cut. Well, look, guys, I'm going to just tell you like it is. 90 of you are here right now. 61 of you will only be here at the start of the season. 29 of you all have to go. 29. And they might even go deeper, Mark, and cut down to like 53 and hold to see who else gets released from around the league before they fill those practice squad slots. So in real terms, Mark, you have 90 guys. You go down and you're going to go basically for that retrospect. There are going to be, you get down to 40, you add 3 more, right? So 37 guys have to be cut by the time the season starts. 8 of those 37 may come back to the team or may not, depending upon who around the league has been cut by the other 31 teams. That team needs to fill that slot, those slots.
Well, and what's interesting is that you haven't even yet touched on, not 1 second, with the concept that so many of these guys are going to get hurt. And then what happens? Say that, torn ACL, done.
Yep.
And it's remarkable. And you were in your almost your late 20s kind of a thing when.
Yep. I was 27.
Yeah, and you're like, dude, I'm 27. My career's barely getting going, and that's what I think catches everybody off guard.
It does.
So I think it's interesting. It's really a great idea that you did to become educated in the as a contractor in construction. So I know some of the people may know the story, but why don't you go ahead and walk me through a little bit about so you retire. You're sort of tell me what it was like almost like the day you find out or you've decided that's it, and what did you go through for a while, and then how did you kind of pivot out of it?
So I remember that I had my back injury and, I was with the Titans and I thought I was going to make it through the first cuts because I was like, oh, I'm playing good enough, but my back's hurting. But, I'm still doing okay, but I wasn't doing as well as I needed to, obviously. So when I got released, I was one of the last cuts for Tennessee, and it was very shocking, very depressing. It was very hard to deal with. And I realized that, wow, I'm 27 years old. I just lost my father not too long ago from a situation with his health. And I've really I'm sorry, I was 26 years old. I was 26 about to be 27. I'm like, wow, what's next? So I remember I ended up staying in my condo for about another 2 or 3 days, just drinking, pill popping, drinking some more, just like, wow, like I have nothing to wake up for now. I mean, I've got some money in the bank, good money in the bank. I don't have a plan, but I do have capital in the bank. I've got money put away, and I've got, close to, $1 million or so. So might as well go ahead and pop a few pills, drink a little bit. I got nothing else to do. So I did that. And then I remember I had a friend of mine who came down. I flew down to Nashville to drive home with me back to Baltimore, because I had a house in Baltimore. And for about 6 months, it was just bottle hard. Bottle to pills to bottle to nightlife to gambling to you name it, just total defilement. So after about 6 months of stopping feeling sorry for myself, I finally got off my ass and I went down to Baltimore City. Met a friend of mine down there, just to a couple of conferences and stuff like that, just trying to find out what to do, stuff like, and to make it even worse, my brother was still on the Ravens, so I still would go support him and go watch football games and watch him start and watch friends of mine that were on the team and that was played against, and it was really hard for a while. But then I decided, I'm gonna turn around, and then I met my business partner at an event. And then we got together, decided to sit down with some lawyers, drew some paperwork up, and then I ended up starting that construction company. And that was the day I said, okay, football is gone. Let's go ahead and pivot out of this, and let's try to make your mark on something else. I was 27 at the time, and that's what I decided to do. And basically, it was just a moment of realizing if I don't stop drinking on this bottle, it's going to be a very, very long, arduous, and potentially deadly road if I don't get my life back on track.
Right. So before we talk about now how you join, you start this company and you run with it, I want to ask you, at least back in those days, so you effectively get cut. So basically, does the NFL are you basically completely abandoned? Is there anybody reaching out to you?
At that time, yes. At that time in 2006, there was no CBA setup like there is for today. So in 2013, the NFL Players Union and Players Association, through the CBA or the collective bargaining agreement, formed some different outlets and different shall we say, tentacles or different agencies that could help former players that were going through transition difficulty, such as the NFL Trust, such as the NFLPA Retired Players Association, such as the NFL Legends. So today, if a guy gets released, there is a place for him to go for guidance, for help, for that transition. There is a place to go.
Now,
but when I got released in 06, 07, it was almost 06, 07, there was no place to go at that time.
Wow. And that's, try to imagine your situation times 1,000, right? I mean, there's so many players obviously that have gone through that. Now, but now the way it's set up today, is it something where they have someone assigned to call the Marques Ogdens of the world, or is it on you to reach out to them for that support?
It's on you to reach out to them. So if you've been released and you're somebody that's been on a roster long enough or that fits the criteria, you can call either the NFLPA Retired Players, you can call the NFL Trust, and they have different case managers, workers, legends, captains who are former players that really are designed and positioned all around the country. Like, for example, Brady James, who played for the Cowboys, is a Legends director in the Texas area. My good friend Hannibal Navies is placed in the Green Bay area. Oh God, I forgot his name. Chad Pennington is a Legends captain. He's in the New York area. Mark Brunell is a Legends captain down in the Jacksonville area. So if you're a player who wants help, you have many different avenues to call to get that help. But
hey, let me ask you a question though. Do you think, I don't mean to, as I said at the start, we're going to be steering this a variety of different ways. So, but I'm just, this is really interesting to hear. So let's say, for example, though, a player, Bob Jones, whoever it is, sort of has to leave the game. A lot of times, look, especially football players, they're such proud people, and they're not used to ever, admitting any sort of weakness. And I have to feel that some of them might consider it, they feel really uncomfortable reaching out. And I almost wish there was a way, and maybe there is at some point, a way that once somebody gets cut, there's somebody automatically that reaches out to them from one of these, whether it's the trust or the legends, et cetera, and just says, hey, listen, Bob, why don't you listen? I'm going to be swinging by your neck of the woods. Why don't we grab a coffee and I'll talk to you a little bit more about blah, blah, blah. Does that make any sense, or do you think it's just kind of too tough to manage that? What do you think?
It's too many players. It's way too many. So think about this. There's 32 teams, right?
Right.
Let's say you got 40 guys that get cut, right? And again, especially now the way they're doing it, Mark, where they're cutting everybody in 24 hours. So you got 40 guys. Let's say you got 40 guys. 40 guys times 32 teams. That's 1,280 guys that in a period of 24 hours, Mark, all across the country get cut. There's just no way. There's probably maybe 20 to 30 legends, members and case managers. You don't have enough dollars and cents because all this stuff, the trust, the CBA, the Player Care Foundation, the legends, they are regulated by the IRS because they're not-for-profits. So They have to get regulated like anybody else. So you can't just dump a bunch of money into hiring people frivolously just to cover 1,200 guys for per season, because then the case managers would get overworked and overwhelmed. Plus, like you said, a lot of these guys, unfortunately, what happens is, Mark, and I know Dawn can attest to this being a football fan as well, when guys get cut, they get very angry, they get very hostile, and it's most of the time, unfortunately, they're too angry or too embarrassed or too, whatever the case may be, to go and ask for help because they feel they've been wronged or that they should have made the team or that, how dare they cut me or, something like that. So that's what happens a lot. A lot of times guys don't take it well. And then when they don't take it well, they build up resentment. So then a lot of times it's unfortunate for the NFLPA, Retired Player Association, the Trust, the Legends, because these are all fantastic organizations, is that they run into players who have so much built up resentment from the NFL, the way the NFL, they feel got rid of them or cut them, didn't help them, whatever, that it makes it hard for the Legends or the different agencies to help these guys.
Right. So I guess, and not to, this is part of what I try to go through, I guess, in my book and some other things and how I coach retired players is, I think the very first thing is you brought up a great point, Marcus. It's to get past some of that resentment and that just sort of oh my God, how, why me? How could they do this to me? And I think, and I'm just throwing it out there, it's not, again, it's just me talking, but the NFL Trust or the Legends, et cetera, it's not a question of trying to service 1,280 people because I think you said, and I think from what I've heard, sometimes these people, there's criteria where they would qualify to be able to be helped out, but it may knock off 1,000 of those people. But I almost feel like even if it was over the course of a few weeks after, they get a call and it's a half-hour chat or something to talk them off the ledge kind of a thing. I think that could be, I don't want to say a lifesaver, but it could really be a dramatic change in their lives and careers. But anyway, just a thought. Yeah, maybe I can recommend that in your next meeting. Whatever.
Again, Mark, like you said, some of those guys are not going to take the call. A lot of those guys, and see, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
People always tell me, oh, I would love to coach retired athletes. This, that, you have to understand something. It's very hard for a non-athlete to coach an athlete because they look at you as outsiders. Right. I had a phone call yesterday, 2 days ago, with Stacey Elliott, who is the father of Ezekiel Elliott.
Right.
And another call with Mr. Reggie Wilkes, who is the financial planner for Cam Newton and several other big name players. So we're in discussions right now about me coaching these guys that are in college that might be first round draft picks, like Denard Baker, who's going to be who's like the number one cornerback this year coming out of Georgia, and getting with these guys and having me kind of mentor and coach them ahead of time, right? And then working with some current guys, like, I look at Cam Newton, and I love Cam Newton's game. But if you look at Cam, I don't know what it is. I don't know his family history, but you can tell a lot of things he does are very unique and different. And he's got a disposition where he's very much is very independent, which is a good thing. But I don't know if Cam's ever had that steady guidance, because I know his brother right now goes to my college at Howard University. So it's kind of crazy that I was talking to this guy. But like the guy was telling me yesterday, and Mr. Elliott was saying, like, these guys really need to hear from a former player that's not a fan, or a former player that's been through that situation, so that when they end up leaving the game, or they end up going through the tough parts of training camp, or dealing with, the fans, or, scrutiny, media, stuff like that, they're better prepared. So again, this is why I'm working on a couple different projects about potentially working with some guys in college, high-level guys, and then working with some guys that are playing. But again, a lot of these athletes don't want to be talked to by anybody that's not an athlete. That's just the way it is. It's kind of like I won't say like a brotherhood. So, but anyway, that's just something that I just wanted to answer back to.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I totally get it. I mean, it's, I'm sure you could put 100 lawyers in a room and they only want to listen to themselves. Right. Actually, I just had a nightmare there thinking about 100 lawyers in a room. Anyway, but what I'll say is that maybe it makes some sense. I'm just like sort of brainstorming here, that I don't disagree with what you're saying, but maybe it makes sense for some of those retired players to get then some additional, whether it's education, et cetera, on some of the tips and strategies that would really help these guys. Because I understand that it's almost the same as, when you hear something from a parent, you're kind of like, oh yeah, that's just mom or dad or something. But then the same message can be delivered by somebody else, completely a total stranger or another parent, and they'll be like, oh, that's great advice.
Right.
It's all about, you're right. It's all about who delivers it. But that's a great point. So now, look, I want to shift back to, so now you've been out of the game. You spent your 6 months doing what you're doing, and then now you're partnering up with somebody and you're starting your contracting company and so forth. Tell me more about sort of how did that start going, and what happened to it?
It was going great. I built the business off of skills that I had learned in the NFL, from people like Bill Belichick, who I met when I was younger, to Jack Del Rio, who was my head coach in Jacksonville, to Brian Billick, to Mike Mularkey. I can go down the list. So I built my company off of strong leadership skills, professionalism, and had a good positive culture. And it was slow in the beginning, hard, but I was the marketing expert and my partner was the operations, so I thought. And we built this thing within about 4 years to an 8-figure business. We had some very large clients. We worked all across the state of Maryland, Baltimore City, Baltimore County. We went into DC a little bit, and we became the largest minority contractor in the city of Baltimore and in the state of Maryland for 2 years in the area of site work. And unfortunately, in 2012, again, 2013, I made a really bad mistake, and I got very, shall we say, pompous, arrogant, very not easy to talk to. That positive culture that I worked so hard to build was gone. I didn't take accountability for anything that went wrong in the office. I always blamed somebody else. If it went right, it was my job. It was my doing. If it went wrong, it was somebody else. And eventually all my best employees started to migrate away to other locations. And 6 months later, which would be in the February, I started that project for Johns Hopkins Hospital in probably like July of 2012. So about 6 months later or so, by February of 2013, I had to shut the doors and I had to pack up. It was mutiny in the office. We couldn't pay people. Checks were bouncing. I had to spend about $2 to $3 million of my money and the company's money and my personal credit cards and taking out home equity loans and you name it on the project. And we did not get paid back the change order that we spent all that money on. And it sent us into bankruptcy. So we weren't able to pay employees. This is right around Christmas time. So it was horrible. People were stealing trucks and stealing laptops and breaking into offices and threatening people. And it was just absolute horrifying for about 2 months. And then I ended up having to, I remember going to get groceries from Walmart or from the local corner store. Credit cards would bounce. It was every single time. It was like credit cards bouncing, no money in the bank. Like it was just absolutely horrible. And I remember what I had worked so hard for was gone. So, and then basically in March of 2013, we found a place here in Carolina. We went to the NFL. I went to the NFL and filled out my application to get myself some help. And I moved down to North Carolina 2013. And I was about maybe a week away from being homeless because I couldn't afford next month's rent. But the NFL PA and the Player Care Foundation ended up granting me a 4-month stipend grant, and they paid my bills, like my house note, car note, everything that you would think of for 4 months. So that worked out to be about close to $15,000. Again, they didn't give it to me. They paid the creditors directly. The process took about maybe 2 to 3 weeks. It was extensive. I had to have like tax returns. I had to show bank statements. I had to show financial need. It was not like, hey, I need help, guys. Okay, wave a finger, snap a finger, you got it. It took me about a week to gather the information, another 2 weeks for them to approve it. But I never thought they would. I was like, okay, it's going to be another thing where we're going to be homeless. My wife's going to go live with her mother-in-law. And I'm going to go live in a homeless shelter for a while until I figure this out. But they granted it. And, that was the beginning for me of some positivity. It was still a lot of negativity to go through at that time, but it was a lot of positivity that started from there. But again, of course, there was a lot more hardships on the way. But, the NFLPA was a saving grace for me because they saved my life and bailed me out when they didn't have to.
That's amazing. And so you get bailed out, you're starting to make this turn, but you're still, it's tough time, right? And so what happened next? What'd you start doing?
So that time I had a job with Merrill Lynch in Durham, which the NFL helped me get. They helped me go through the interview process. They helped me identify a location, went to several interviews, got hired to the job, got fired from that job about 2 months later because I was not going to pass the Series 7. I then ended up going to work for a construction company. I was hired that same Friday I was fired. I was hired that next day. And I came to work on Monday. I was hired Monday, fired that Friday. So I got fired twice in a week from from 2 jobs.
Congratulations. That's all right.
That's all right. No, congratulations. That's for
sure. Jeez.
So then I ended up doing some private football lessons, coaching. I tell people all the time, I was so embarrassed about it at the time, but now it's so funny. I built my business off of Living Social because I went on Living Social to run a football camp, and Living Social, I had to cut my price in half, and then they took 25%. So I lost 75% of revenue by going to Living Social. But what it gave me that I didn't have was a Rolodex. So by getting the Rolodex, I was then able to start calling people up. I'm never going to forget this. I was like cold calling people, selling 3 training sessions, 3 one-hour training sessions for $129. I sold 15 in the first day. So then I said, okay, this is good. But so I started working and working. I said, but wait a second, I'm not getting enough consistent money here yet because I'm not charging enough. I don't have any credibility. I don't have any credentials. So then I end up going to work getting a job. One of my clients, she owned a janitorial business and she said she needs some help. I said, okay, I'm your man. So I ended up making $8.25 an hour on the graveyard shift in downtown Raleigh. And that is when I decided that something had to change. And my life-changing moment was my spoiled milk moment. When someone spoiled milk, I was taking out the trash about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, got on my bare skin. At that time, Mark, I decided I wanted to change my life. Went home, sat down, and I wrote out what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was be a keynote speaker. So I thought it was going to be real easy. Like, oh, everybody's going to hire me. I'm a former NFL player. The same pompous attitude that I had when I got to the top of my construction company, which really is how I started my speaking business. And gee, lo and behold, first 30 months or 2.5 years, not one paid job.
Now, why do you think that was the case?
Because I was, in short, I was an ass. Because all I talked about was myself. And again, you're going to tell your story, which is fine, which is great. But at some point during the presentation, it's not going to be all about you. It's going to be giving your clients teaching points, nuggets, information, strategies to make them better. Not to motivate them, because motivation is garbage. And my good friend, and my Dawn, who's on the call, my good friend, she knows we have a mutual friend that says motivation is garbage because it only lasts for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Once I learned how to inspire people for the long haul, I started getting booked more. And so basically the whole point is that I was not getting hired because I had nothing to offer people but a football story. And in reality, 95 was going even further. 99% of society cannot relate to football at a high level. They only know what they see on TV.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned all that, because one of the things I like to tell people is that, sometimes when people hear that speakers can make $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, whatever the amount is to speak, they say, well, wow, that's so much money. I say, well, look, turn it around a different way. If there's 100 people in attendance and the speaker makes $5,000, basically the speaker needs to deliver effectively $50 worth of value to each person. And to me, when you're delivering tips and advice and strategies and things that are, as you said, sort of actionable that people can run with, and not just, because you're right. There are, and you know this as well as anybody, there are 1,000,001 motivational speakers out there, and they all have amazing stories. And then you see everybody putting their hands up to the sky and doing all this stuff. Well, that's great, but I don't know anybody that then goes back to their desk and starts putting their hands up in the air. And no, they don't do that crap. So then they're like, okay, I'm motivated. But wait, what am I motivated to do? What am I supposed to do? What's next? And they kind of blow it. So, so what are some of the, give me an idea of some of the things that you like to, what's some, let me take a step back. Obviously now you've grown this speaking business and you're speaking everywhere. You're a dynamo. You got tons of energy. You're kicking butt right now. But I'd love to hear a little bit of, what's some of the advice that you like to give your audiences when they listen to you that, our listeners can really benefit from?
It varies. So it really depends upon the client and the topic. So for example, if I'm doing a speech, I've been hired now 3 times in 90 days by PNC Bank. I went to their national headquarters which was in Pittsburgh in early May, went down in early June to do their sales meeting, their state of Florida sales meeting. And now I'm heading down to Orlando to speak for their entire healthcare and SBA sales team. So the topic of my talk for them is the importance of perseverance and resilience in the world of sales. So I'm going to talk about a couple different things, but I'm going to talk about a couple actionable steps of what are 3 things that are needed to succeed at sales? Number 1 is belief in yourself. Like I was talking to Dawn about this earlier. Confidence to me is not you can do something. Confidence to me is you actually getting off your ass, trying it, and saying whatever happens, happens. At least I'm confident to at least try. And you know that if you try something and you fail, it's okay. You are confident to at least try it and put yourself in a position to be successful. It may not work out for you, but at least you're confident. So belief in yourself is crucial in sales. Number 2 is relentless desire. It's the ability to, no matter what, create that follow-up, create that consistency. It's not the job of the client to stay on your radar. It's your job to stay on the client's radar. And then the third thing is going to be a championship mindset. One of my coaches, who I didn't realize this until a couple weeks ago, was let go by the Titans, is Mike Malarkey. And he had a saying, which I'm going to use to open my speech up for them in PNC, is the greatest fear that we have to overcome is the fear that we put into our own minds. And Malarkey used to say that people who are average at their job, when fear comes into their mind, it stays longer than it should. If you want to be a champion, win a Super Bowl, create a legacy, when fear enters your mind, it's got to go out of your mind right away. Fear is a good thing. It tells us you're alive, but fear can be paralyzing if it stays in your mind for any long period of time. So Malarkey used to always tell us when I was in Buffalo back in 05, 06, is that at the end of the day, the greatest fear that we have to overcome is the fear we put into our own minds. So that's a sample. If I'm talking about a leader, if I'm talking about a leadership, action plan, or if I'm talking about ways to really, build trust. So like I talk about some really important things in sales as well have your diligent follow-up. Okay. Is to basically market and be out there in front of people, or basically, as I say, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Listen first, talk second. So I say that's number 1. Then number 2 is, again, having diligent follow-up. And then the third thing is building trust between you, your potential client, you, your existing clients, you, and the team around you. Now, how do you build trust? You have to have competency, reliability, and show you have each other's back. So competency is, can you get the job done like you say you can? That's number 1. Reliability. I was talking to PNC. I told them, you know what, guys, I can get this job done. And they said, okay, Marcus, great. Who have you worked for other than PNC Bank? I said, great question. Her name is Brenda. I said, great question, Brenda. I've worked for JP Morgan and Chase. I've worked for the Home Depot. I just got hired by AXA Advisors. I've worked for First Citizens Bank. I spouted off like 7 or 8 Fortune 100 companies. And she was like, okay, Marcus, good enough. You great answer. You pass. She said, because it's really funny that some people, when she talks to them, are going to say a couple of small companies. And I said, well, ma'am, I totally understand that, but this is my full-time job. And I take it very seriously, and I've worked hard to perfect the craft to be able to help my clients get what they need. So I take this very seriously. So that's the competency. Reliability. Can you get the job done when you say it can get done? So we had a phone call with PNC that day at 10 o'clock in the morning for a conference call. 9:59, I'm on the phone, ready to go. And I talked to her about that during the conference. She said, Marcus, that's something that really impressed me, is that you were early, and which means you're never on time, you're always early. You were early for our call. So I know that if we hire you, you're going to be reliable. And the third thing is having the clients back. I had a phone call with my guy from PNC who hired me. We went over the PowerPoint. He gave me a couple little bullet points to talk about. He didn't realize I had a degree in finance, which made him laugh. So I talked about some lingo, banking terms, like the competition in banks. You have different regulatory rules. Other banks might be able to get things done faster, less points, closing points. So basically, we're just talking about making sure that when I talk to the room, that they have to excel at their legacy of creating it. And they're going to have to remember that other banks are going to might be doing things differently, charging lower rates, breaking rules to get things done. And PNC's not going to do that. Like, we're not going to break code or break regulatory rules or break, FDIC regulations to close a deal. So those are the type of things that I talk about, and they can spread across any subject matter. So I feel, but this is how I've learned to grow a bit. Like I said, Mark and Don can attest this too. You don't get hired by a Fortune 200 company 3 times in less than 90 days by accident.
No, well, listen, it's clear that you, look, the whole point and what you said really resonates, because when you speak from experience and you speak from knowledge, the speaking part's easy because you know what you know, right? It's easy to talk about that stuff. And it's great because when people see how easy it's coming out and how well you know it and how comfortable you are delivering it, it's easier for them to trust that they're learning something that's, that is really, it comes from knowledge. And the fact that people are watching you and hearing you speak and so forth and can leave with this presentation is great. Now, I want to go back a couple of minutes to when you were talking about fear and what Mike Malarkey said. And it really resonates because, I try to talk about the same thing. When people are really nervous about doing things or they're afraid to ask for things, whether it's asking for a job or asking for an extra, whatever it is, donut or something, whatever it is, right? I know donuts are illegal in your world, but they're not legal in mine yet. So, but when you ask for things, well, look, the whole concept is, I remember as a kid, I'd be potentially fearful of jumping over like a creek or something, right? And all I'd be thinking is, oh my God, what happens if I fall in? What happens if I fall and break my ankle? And then when you jump over it and you're like, well, what the hell, man? That was a lot easier than I thought it would be. And why did I even have that fear? It's the same exact thing. When you push the fear out of your mind and you realize and have the confidence that you can attain these, whatever the objection might be, the hurdle, etc., it just makes things so much easier across the board. So, you were spot on, Mike Malarkey was spot on. That's great. Now, I want to now shift gears to one of your other current endeavors, passions, etc. If people go to your Wikipedia page, which I happen to be on right now, it says here that you're 6 feet 6 inches tall. Without looking, don't cheat. How much do you think it says for a weight?
Probably like 325, 330.
No, they must have caught you on a good day. 312.
Yep. That was that's why I was playing football. So yeah.
so talk to me. Where are you now, and how do you feel?
So I am right now about 275
Wow.
in that 75 to 277 range. I started doing isogenics about 14 weeks or so ago, somewhere in there. Lost somewhere in the neighborhood about 50 pounds. I feel fantastic. Dawn, who's on the line, has lost somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 pounds on her health and wellness journey. She's one of our team members, and she dedicates and buys product monthly and has done a great job with her sport, with her health and her wellness, and sharing her testimony. She's got a lot of people that are under her as clients, so she's doing well, making some money from the company, and also getting great product and health. But really, all I tell people all the time is, look, we have to eat. Right? We have to eat food. You're better off eating something that's nutritional value, that it'll help you build up a good foundation. So if you decide to eat something bad, it won't be as catastrophic. The great thing on this program is I can still eat normal food. I can still go out and have a steak. I can have potatoes. I can have bread. I can have vegetables. I can have whatever the hell I want to have. Like, one of my favorite meals is a steak with a lobster bisque and a side of asparagus, or a half rotisserie chicken with brown rice and sauteed spinach. So I'm not depriving my body of food. If that was the case, Mark, I could not do this. And I've done other things like Take Shape for Life and other things where you had to eat their food all the time. And if you came off the regimen, you were going to have a shock to your system and you would gain the weight right back. So this program, it has a science behind it to break up the visceral fat. So my wife has lost about 25 pounds. My mother lost also about 15 pounds. Dawn's lost, 60. I've lost around 50. Good friend of mine, Stonewall, who you met from the academy, has lost 25. Corey Mays is losing weight. I mean, he started the program, So a lot of people from, a lot of people that are on this program, Mark, everybody's losing weight. But everybody also is losing visceral fat and inches. That's the difference. And they're still able to eat the food. If you want to go have a beer, go have a beer. If you want to go have a vodka and tonic, go have a vodka and tonic. It's all about counting the calories smartly so that you can get the best results. But again, if you have a cheat day, which all humans do, the nutrition in this program is built up. So if you have that day, it's not that bad. Dawn, what's been your experience on isogenics?
Well, you know what? And the reason I'll just jump in. I think the reason it's life-changing is, yes, you're losing the weight, but what's really almost immeasurable is how it makes you feel, right? And how your confidence is skyrocketing. And you just feel so great about yourself, and just, it's a whole new way of living, right? Yeah. So Mark, why aren't you doing it yet? Okay, I'll get on it.
Mark, and I told you need to sign up under me. And I told this to Dawn a while back. You are somebody that has a lot of influence, and you like to have your bread, your pasta, and all. I get it. And so do I. But it's like, okay, if you put into your body good nutrition for about 30 days, right? And you build it up. If you have something bad, it's not going to hurt you. That's what I told. So Corey lost, I want to say about 24 to 25 pounds in like 3 weeks. And Corey said the same things. Like, man, I was nervous. I was scared. I said, Corey, look, man, the thing is, and I told him, if you do have a bad day, your body has built up that foundation. So, and I told him also, if you do sign up and it doesn't work, you don't lose the weight, it's a full money back guarantee. So that's when Stonewall signed up, he was my first person. Stonewall signed up, lost 25 pounds. Boom. So Corey Proctor saw that and saw how I was looking. Corey Proctor called me. Boom. Corey Proctor signed up. Corey Mays saw a post that Corey Proctor made. Boom. Corey Mays signed up.
That's great.
And then Chris Jackson saw how I was doing it and saw how Corey was losing the weight. Boom. Chris Jackson and his wife signed up.
That's great.
So, I mean, it's like, it's nothing, crazy. It's just about, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to change a little tweak here and there. If I still have my normal life, which I'm going to do, then it won't be as bad.
That's amazing. So we're starting to run a little bit low on time, and I want to make sure that everybody can effectively get a hold of you for a variety of reasons. So number one, what's the best way for people to read more about and see more about your speaking? Tell me about your website and so forth. Great.
So our website is www.Marques, MARQUES, Ogden, OGDEN, publicspeaker.com. And we're in the process now of revamping it. It should be done by tomorrow. Or by the time it airs, it'll be done. And we're kind of making it more friendly for meeting planners. And we also do some leadership coaching, work with athletes and people of that nature. And there's some information about that on there. And then we're also doing a blog, which Dawn's going to start writing our blog to post content on there and all that kind of great stuff.
Marques, man, you know what? You need to be doing a podcast.
I have. We do podcasts. It's just that what we've been doing now is we have that on our media section. We're in the process now of just kind of focusing, because right now, Mark, I've got to go to Nashville for an event. Then I go from Nashville straight to Orlando. Then in September, I am in New Orleans for the NFLPA, potentially in Miami for a big company called Viserve, potentially.
Okay.
Confirmed by AXA Advisors in September. And then I might have to go to Vegas twice. And then in October, I might have to go to Minneapolis. I'm in Vegas. And then I'm in, it's just crazy. And I'm in DC, it's crazy with speaking, but we do have the ability through Zoom to do. I've had some great interviews. Johnny Wimbury, who's a big time MLM guy and speaker, was one of my guests. Gloria Banks, who her husband is a major player in the GC world in Baltimore, is a big speaker. She's big with Mary Kay. And then another guy I had on there, Brent, was another big player from Houston that is doing well in the MLM space.
That's great. That's awesome. Look, so it's funny because I speak to people that know you and know of you, and I speak to other people that are tied in with you and all that sort of thing. And we're all amazed that every day I wake up and not only is Dawn doing basically a kick-ass job on social media and everywhere. I mean, you're just all over the place. It's amazing. But I mean, you're really spreading a great message. And it's funny that sometimes when you're in your sort of deepest, darkest hole kind of thing, you can't possibly imagine this or see it. And here you are today. And, I want everybody to realize that, everybody has the opportunity to make their mark. I mean, that's what this is all about. And everybody has a chance to rebound and to reinvent themselves and come out of a dark place and into a place where people are making an impact. And that's exactly what you're doing. And, I'm thrilled to have you on here today. It's been a blast. You're a great guest because you certainly know how to speak. I mean, after all, you've only delivered 65 million speeches, so you've got that down. I think 65 million, right? And
somewhere around there.
Plus or minus, yeah. 64. We're working on that extra million. Come on, damn it. Anyway, but look, and you're engaged. You're engaged with your sort of, I don't want to say fan base, but the people that are listening to you. And, what I appreciate when I see you on social media is that you are also, you're engaged with them. You're not just a sort of a silent figure, but you're talking to the people and listening to their stories and then incorporating yours. And I think it's amazing. And I'm thrilled with what you do. And I'm excited to see what your future holds for you. I think it's going to be amazing. Wait a minute. Marques Ogden for president. What do you think?
Oh, no. There's no politics in this boy's future.
Yeah, no kidding. You know what? I not to get into politics, but it's funny. I tell people now that this guy, Mr. Trump in office is sort of taking away my thunder, because I used to say back several years ago, I used to say that I wanted to be the guy that basically was an equal opportunity. I pissed off everybody the same amount, right? And this way I could just get things done and just not listen to anybody sucking up to me and whatever it is. And then here's this guy, not only does he use that style, but he just stomps on everybody. So anyway, but that's a whole nother story. But listen, thanks again, Marques, for being on. Thanks, Don, for being on as well. I loved hearing your different stories. You guys are both amazing, and I can't wait to meet up with you again. I had a great time at your Leadership Academy a few months ago in Vegas. I met some amazing people. Many of them have become friends, and sort of we've been collaborating. And so once again, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it, and look forward to continuing this.
Sounds good, Mark.
Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Make Your Mark podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you find ways to make your mark, to succeed in life, and to jump past your competition. Be sure to leave me a review on iTunes and Stitcher, and subscribe to be the first to hear new episodes. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com, and I'll get back to you right away. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.